Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the WRRAP podcast. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Jamie, and joining me for this one is James and Harley. Good evening, gents. How are we?
Good evening.
Good evening.
We all good?
Yeah, a bit. Depends if we talk about Wales or club sides.
It depends on whether we talk about Wales men or Wales women.
Yes.
Yeah, true, I suppose, yeah.
Well, you should be happy, James, after today's announcement. We'll come on to that in a bit, but let's start, as we always do on this pod, with Drink of the Week. I'll go first. So I've got sour beer. I have got blackcurrant and apple crumble. And this is a beer from a company called 71 Brewing Company, who are based in Dundee in Scotland. Let's have a look what it says on the side. Inspired by our most comforting of desserts, our hazy sour beer has been packed with locally sourced blackcurrants, apple juice, spices, and a touch of vanilla to create a luscious mashup of sweet and zingy. This is blackcurrant apple crumble. I don't know if you lads like a crumble. I certainly do. It's one of my favorite desserts, and this does actually taste like a fruit crumble. So I'm well happy with that. What's the percentage on this? 6.5. So it is a bit strong, but yeah, it's pretty nice. So that's 71 Brewing Company with blackcurrant apple crumble. There's mine. I'm well happy with that one. Harley, what have you got for us this week?
So, as people who've been following the Twitter may have saw, I was on holiday last week and I went to a little tasting rooms in Padstow, which had is run by their own brewery. And there was one beer that really took Jamie's fancy, and I actually tried it because that was the kind of reason I went there. I went and bought six little third pints, tasted my way through the menu. Anyway, so sticking with the drinks desserts theme, I've got cheese in parentheses cake by the ocean by Padstow Brewing Company. So this is a raspberry and lemon cheesecake, sour. And a similar vein, yes, it does taste like a raspberry and lemon cheesecake. It is wonderful. It's a little bit less in your face than most sours, so it's not as bang in your face. But it's actually quite. So normally I only drink a sour when I've had a couple of beers to sort of palate cleanse, but this is actually incredibly palatable. It's got I love the color on it. It's just it's almost sort of like a peachy, just off. If you saw that in the bar, you'd probably think it's a normal IPA. But it's just got that lovely hint. When you had a really heavy meal and you have the nice tart dessert, and it just sort of wakens your mouth up again a bit. It's just got that right spot.
That's not the colour I was expecting it to be. I don't know what colour I was expecting, but that's not what I thought it was going to be. Viewers, of course.
That was my surprise when I saw it come out, because I saw it come out and it almost looked indistinguishable from a lot of the other beers I was drinking, because this was my sort of lighter beer round, having started off with heavy bitters. But yeah, it is very palatable. I think even Lee would like it.
Even Lee will like it. There we are. Then that's a good recommendation. James, what have you got this evening? What's your drink of the week?
Well, because I refuse to buy Brewdog, there is not a lot of choice in my local Morrison's at the minute in the can section without buying packs, and I just don't drink enough to buy to have packs. So I managed to find it's by Siren Craft Brew. It's called Expressions Citra DDH IPA. It's one of them wanky ones that has a coarse, sort of feel to it.
Sure can.
Yeah, and the wanky bottle. Oh, it's vegan friendly, so it doesn't contain like beef extract or, because I don't know why it would. But it's
your cow guts. But
yeah, our Expressions beers are soft IPAs made to tell the story of an individual hop. Citra is the superstar of the hop world, widely adored for its citrusy, grapefruit aromas and bold tropical flavors. I'll be honest with you, it tastes a bit fruity, and that's it.
Okay.
It's 5%. It's not like the 8% ones I was having like earlier on in the season just to get through the season. But it's fine. It is genuinely fine.
Can I just pick up on something you said earlier? I refuse to buy Brewdog. Where was we drinking? On Judgment Day in Cardiff, James?
That was before I saw their CEO was a Nigel Farage birthday party.
Oh
They're a
no.
massive. They're a massive bunch of turfs. The heads of
Yeah.
Brewdog.
Oh,
They're
dear.
just
it's
they're an
widely
awful company to work for.
Yeah, there was that BBC documentary. They don't treat
Yeah.
their staff very well at all, Brewdog, do they?
Well, going to a fascist, not to get political, but going to a fascist birthday party, that's not very punk of you, is it?
No. That's put me right off Brewdog now, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Okay,
Support local. Buy
yes,
Tiny Rebel.
absolutely. That's a message I endorse. Right, let's move on to news test then before we get into Saturday's game. So there is a bit of news. A big bit of news, actually. Let's start off with some signing news, though. First of all, Cardiff, they've boosted their pack by signing once-capped England lock Josh McNally from Bath. The 33-year-old, a sergeant in the RAF, arrives after 5 years with Bath. How do you feel about that signing, Ali? It's a pretty good one, isn't it, for experience and bulk?
Well, I mean, that. It's one of the big things a lot of Cardiff fans have been crying out for the last, since Cardiff rugby started in 1870. Blah, blah, blah. It's heritage. They. So
Don't go down
of
there.
course, it's a great signing. He's going to be there throughout the season because let's be fair, Teddy Williams, as soon as he's fit back, Gallagher's going to be doing his best to break him using him as a tackle bag. So we've lost a lot of grunt with Tamani. Ospreys keep buying back any second rows we take off them and turn out to be decent. I can't half expect to see Thornton over there next.
No. Let's not be silly.
Okay.
It's a good signing. Hopefully, it should help develop because when we were talking to Gruff, we've basically promoted a load up from the academy. Now they're all, it's quite young. It's all under 18s, really. So having a few, it's going to take a couple of years before we get anything through.
Yeah, I think it's a decent signing, like I said, it adds a bit of muscle, doesn't it? And really good experience, bit of leadership as well. So, that's a good signing for Cardiff. And then Dragons, they've signed fly-half Lloyd Evans from Gloucester after he was granted an early release for his contract. A couple of weeks ago, Dave Flanger was hinting that the Dragons had signed a Welsh qualified fly-half, and me and James quickly figured out it would be Lloyd Evans. The 28-year-old came through Gloucester's academy. He's made almost 100 senior appearances for the Cherry and Whites. Evans was born in Gloucester, but is Welsh qualified for his father. Anyone know who his father is?
Hugh Evans, former Scarlets chairman, isn't it?
Correct. Yep, that is correct. So, it's a good signing. It's only for a year. It's only a year deal. I think that suits both parties, to be honest. Let's just see how he gets on. He can operate at fullback as well. I think it's a pretty good pickup from the Dragons. Not going to break the bank. He's going to be available all season, you'd think. And for Gloucester as well, they've got Santi Carreras, Garth Anscombe, Charlie Atkinson and George Barton who were able to cover both of those positions. So it's good for Lloyd to move on and get some game time. And the Dragons need a fly half. So
he
it
can
works
also
out well.
play 15 quite well.
Yeah. He can, yeah. He's been playing a lot of 15 recently, hasn't he, for Gloucester?
But weirdly, he was playing a lot of 15 when Santi Carreras, who is a fullback, was playing 10. And then everyone was wondering why Gloucester's attack was so weirdly, chaotically brilliant, yet shit.
It's quite weird for Dragons and their fans at the minute because they have two, more than one fly half, a defence coach, and, by the picture they just put up, some big forwards. Because they started preseason today. And
they did.
And I just saw the photo of the four of their new signings, and Ewan Burrows, big guy. Ollie Burrows, sorry, Ollie Burrows, big guy. Steve Cummins, he's only a few inches taller than Burrows. Lloyd Evans obviously small, and Shane Lewis-Hughes is a big guy as well. So, I'm not saying it's Dragons' year, but
don't say that. Year. Don't say that. Please don't say that. Do not say
anything to take the spotlight off the Ospreys. I just can't wait for their big shock side. Their big shock reveal of the season is they're going to have signed some absolute worldie of a out half or something.
Well, we'll come to that rumor in a minute.
Well, let's go to the Ospreys then. So the big news revealed today: Ospreys. They have announced their new stadium, and it will be, as we all thought it would be, St Helens in Swansea. So the Welsh region are hoping to move in time for the start of the 2025/26 season. Now, Ospreys say the move will involve a multi-million-pound investment in St Helens, which will include the installation of a 4G pitch, new stands, refurbishment of the clubhouse, and the introduction of a new fan zone area. I watched the YouTube video that Lance Bradley did, and he said he expects the capacity to be somewhere around 8,000. And he also mentioned the Swansea Rugby Club and Swansea University will continue to play at St Helens, with Ospreys planning to host an increased number of community games. He also talked about getting a women's team as well, an elite women's team, which I think is really good. So there we are then. The big news has finally happened. Ospreys are going to have a new stadium. James, happy? Happy it's finally settled?
More than happy. I'd make no mistake of how much I love St Helens. Not necessarily a Swansea RFC fan. I'm more an Aberafon fan because I went to school there. I was sort of involved in the schoolboy setup, but sort of I lived in that area for 2 years. One street away from St Helens and it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. There's a vibrant nightlife scene, but great pubs within walking distance. A beautiful backdrop to where the ground sits, and just I think it's a really exciting opportunity. First and foremost, to sort of continue the redevelopment of Swansea as a city, not just as a rugby ground. And this phased redevelopment is a smart way of doing it, rather than just chucking money at the wall and essentially hoping it sticks, by identifying what are the key things we need to do first. Well, they are put a roof on the terraces, chuck up a temporary stand, so you've got 3 stands essentially, redo the clubhouse, and put a 4G pitch down. They're the 3 things that will basically give you solid foundations to go forward. And I actually think the video, I didn't get to watch the video straight away. I watched it a few hours later, and is very well put together in terms of he's very clear about what he wants that pitch to be used for, and that is everything. He wants double headers like Cardiff have. He wants the likes of community games to be played there. Sort of growing up, the big complaint was we were never allowed to play like our version of the Dewar Shield Cup final on the Liberty. Well, it wasn't Ospreys' fault. It was, the Swans not letting us. So you have that opportunity now. We all knew it was going to happen. Anyone with a brain knew it was going to be St Helens. But I think Bridgend have conducted themselves amicably throughout all this, and their statement was really classy. And as a fan, I hope we continue to work with Bridgend. We've got fixture clashes coming up this season, so likely we are going to be using Bridgend. And it is it's a great. I like Bridgend, but for what we need, it just didn't have the facilities. And just in terms of it's unfortunate in terms of its location, but really glad that we've got it over the line and the process can begin. And by all accounts, it's gone down well with about 90% of Welsh Rugby Twitter, which is good for Welsh Rugby Twitter. There's a few from
excellent.
There's a few from various regions who have had a whinge, but
I'm sure we can name. I'm sure if we really want to, we could name.
I can name him. Yeah. But on the whole, really good, really exciting time to be an Osprey.
Good stuff. Yeah, I saw a few grumbles from fans. I mean, the majority of the fans are really happy about it, but there was some complaining about the parking and the infrastructure around St Helens. But Lance Bradley has been replying to a lot of these people, in fairness, and he said, look, there's car parking, regular buses that stop outside the ground, and it's a 20-minute walk from the city centre. Mm-hmm. So it's okay. It's doable, isn't it?
It's not as bad as people. I get that a lot of people travel by car, but it's not like they're not going to build a car park. It's not like they're not going to have parking facilities. Like, people are just being pedantic. If we were doing this a couple of years ago, Neath wouldn't have had the parking facilities. God, I remember going to a couple of preseason games at Neath. You couldn't park anywhere before they built that multi-story. Same with Bridgend. Bridgend's lucky it's next to a train station, but yeah, the little semantics like that don't particularly matter. It's a very very good opportunity, and I for one, I'm looking forward to it. And it's a beautiful stadium and a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Harley, any thoughts on it at all? As a Cardiff supporter,
I think James covered it well. I mean, it's going to be great for Ospreys to have their own ground. That's theirs. They are the primary people on it. I know the Swansea RFC are going to still be there as well. But yeah, it's nice having your own home. It's very sensible. Sounds like they're building what they need now with the future in mind. So they've got that plan for expansion, which is something a lot of people get trapped in, is they build something for now and then it's out of date. And that it's quite a lot of things get built for a certain purpose and then they're out of date by the time they're complete. Yeah. So I think that's very sensible. Again, with the parking, of course they're going to put a car park up, but I mean, if you've got slightly less than ideal public transport, it's still there, and then that's obviously and I think a lot of these people think about the situation now, not think in the future, but not thinking about how the future is going to change. And it's just like, give I'm sure they'll have thought of this because that would have been part of the planning application with partner spaces. Like whenever the university, when I was working at the University of Exeter, when they were building, they'd be building something on top of like an old car park. So they had to say, right, we've got to build another car park. But we can't open that car park until we started building on this one because we're only allowed so many spaces because the council say you've got to have this many spaces. Can't have more and you can't have less. And it's one of those weird things. So I imagine it'd be a similar thing in Swansea.
Yeah. Okay, James, let me ask you this then. So now this has finally been sorted because it did drag on for a little bit.
Yeah.
As an Osprey supporter now, because there has been uncertainty over the region, as you know, we all saw that Sporting Wales interview last week. Alex Cuthbert, Sean Harley, they were speculating it could be the Ospreys. I knew that's something that you wasn't particularly happy about. With this move now finally happening, do you feel more reassured about the club's future going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I think I was more reassured having spoken to Lance myself. And actually, I think once you got over the initial shock of that interview and you actually probably sat down to look at it and listen to the interviews with Abby Tierney, the other one,
The other one.
I can't even remember his name.
Richard Collier-Keywood.
That one.
Yeah.
I do genuinely believe that 4 is their goal.
Yeah.
What the 4 look like in terms of a funding model is a bit different. Because you got to remember that initial thing said we were £35 million in debt, right? And then after a week, that somehow came down to 29 million. So the numbers haven't really the numbers haven't added up, let's say. So yeah, I'm no worse off mentally around where the Ospreys are going to exist than I was 6 months ago, because I'm always on edge that the Ospreys aren't going to exist. It's survival instinct. I'm like a baby deer going through a safari park. But no, it doesn't affect. For me, it should reassure a lot of people. Yeah, I have no doubt that the WRU won't 4, but what the 4 look like will be very different.
Yeah.
And the SIU are going through something very similar, and so it'd be interesting to see how the two approach this. But it's a thing for another time. I think if you're an Ospreys fan, just be excited. It was a really good end to the season. We've had a couple of weeks of no news, and then now this has come out. I think it is a really good time to be excited. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's the news desk done then. Big news for the Ospreys.
Can I talk about the rumor that came out the other day?
Go ahead, yeah.
So, rugbyjp.com, who is a Pencoid boy, actually, living in Japan, who reports on all the
that explains
Japan
a lot.
Top League stuff, right? Tweeted out randomly with no, forewarning that an ex-NRL player who currently plays in Japan has been offered to the Ospreys. And the Ospreys, and I quote, said, "We'll have a look, but because he's not Welsh qualified, he's not desirable," is the word. Now, somehow that spawned, we were going to sign former All Black, 16-capped All Black, Ngani Lamape. I would just like to put out on the record, we are not signing Ngani Lamape. I know who the player is, and I might be able to reveal it in a couple of days.
Is it a big name though?
It's a relatively well-known name and a good, well-traveled player. Who's played in. I'll tell you guys off air, but he's played in good standard leagues around the world.
Can't believe it's on Sam Burgess.
No, it's not Sam Burgess. It's Luke Burgess, his brother.
It's a journeyman. When you said well-traveled, to me that just screams journeyman.
It is journeyman, but with a good record.
Okay.
But it's not Ngani Lamape, former All Black.
It'd be amazing if it was. Though, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that?
We have a budget of about 12 pence, and we have repeatedly said we're not signing marquee players.
Again, this is like Cardiff and the Fafter Clerk rumours.
No, that was
never going to be Fafter Clerk.
That was true in my eyes. They wanted to sign Faf.
I think they did as well.
So I would just like to put that on the record. We are not signing Ngani Lamape.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else before we move on to Saturday's game?
No, I can't think of anything.
No
preseason games. Oh, Dragons have been out some preseason games.
Bath away.
That'll be a good one.
So it's Bristol away. It's Bristol away, Bath away the week after, and they're also negotiating with an English team to come to Ronnie Parade.
Gloucester makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that would be nice because you got the West Country
It'll be
thing going on there.
They're looking to give you a paste. Just
we've got Exeter away. I think I'm going to try and go to that.
Have we got Exeter?
We've got Exeter. You've got Ealing, haven't you?
Yeah, we're Ealing away, Bath home. And I think there's rumours about a third one, but it's probably...
Yeah, normally you have three. We normally play Northampton, but we're not doing that this year, apparently.
The only thing I can think of is if they basically do a sort of half team with with one of the Rags pre-seasons.
Scarlets are going to Leicester. I found that out today.
Okay.
Does Sam Costello want to go back to a competent team?
Right, I think we should move on now.
Right.
Okay. Right, let's talk about Saturday then. So, the Aussie hoodoo continues for Wales, unfortunately, as they failed to get a win down under for the first time since 1969, as Australia beat Wales 25-16. It was 3 tries to 1. So Wales, unfortunately, have injury concerns over Liam Williams, Gav Thomas and Aaron Wainwright before the second test in Melbourne next Saturday, which is not ideal. And by the way, I'm going to get this in now. Aaron Wainwright on his 50th cap was absolutely outstanding, and he is becoming Wales' most important player now. I thought he was brilliant. He really is the go-to guy at the moment. I was really, really pleased with our performance. He's just getting better and better. And, I've heard so many times people say he's not number 8, but he is the number 8 now as far as I'm concerned. He's really grown into that role. I thought he was absolutely terrific, and he was head and shoulders above every other player in red on Saturday. So I just want to put that out there. Before we move on, because I thought he was brilliant, especially on his 50th cap. Really well done to him.
So, I just want to jump onto your point about Aaron Wainwright being a number 8, because most people, when they think number 8, they're thinking of like the Benny Villapolas, the Scott Grinnells, your big bruising carrier.
Yeah,
that's not what a lot of number 8s are anymore.
No,
so that's actually more of the 6's role these days. But as an athlete, if you think about it, our 8 for years has been Falatau and flappable at the base or retreating scrum. Tick.
Yes.
Really good in the wide channels. Tick. Safe pair of hands at line out. Tick. Dodgy facial hair. Tick.
Yes.
Obviously, so full disclosure, I only listened to the BBC Radio Wales audio commentary. I was playing in the garden with my daughter. I'm not paying for Sky Sports for 1 month because I pay for enough for a sport that just generally leaves me pissed off and upset. So I wasn't paying another 30 quid. But from the thing of it, Wainwright's name constantly being chucked in the air. It was great to see. From what I have seen of him all season, in both red and black, it's been excellent. So he's been great. But I think he's definitely. To be honest, as much as I don't want it to be the case, I'm not convinced Falatau's ever coming back.
No,
I hope
I
I'm
got
wrong.
that feeling as well. I think you're right. I don't know why I got that feeling.
It's got too much of the same vibes as what happened with Warburton and Navidi, where they just couldn't seem to. And to a lesser extent, what's happened with Ellis Jenkins. I think he's just had one too many knocks. I'm not trying to retire him out of hand. If he is back and he has a great season, I couldn't be happier. But I've just got that nagging feeling. As for the game itself, for someone who's been put into 12 to carry and make a dent and be, get his hands on the ball more, I didn't hear Grady's name once on radio commentary. Well, maybe once or twice, but normally the 12 you're hearing his name all the time because it's 9. It's quite often 9 to 12 more often than not these days if you're trying to use a Warren Ball style thing. From the sound from the radio comms, apparently Ben Thomas somehow was the world's best player in a team that wasn't doing anything else with it. So I don't know how that
He had a
happened.
decent game. I thought the Cardiff halfbacks actually better than Thomas had decent games in fairness to him. Yeah. Anything else that stood out to you then on radio commentary?
The lineup continues to be shocking, and I don't know how we've managed to go through 2 head coaches with the same forwards coach with the same issues in the lineout, and everyone's calling for Gatlin's head, everyone's calling for Alex King's head, but no one's talking about Humph. Our scrum is at best unpredictable because some games it'll work fine, some tournaments we'll have an absolutely fantastic scrum, and then others it just isn't work. It's not doesn't exist, and it's not necessarily personnel because you've got personnel who are in very good scrums, and then they get switched. I mean, one thing I will say for Gareth Thomas is, everyone's having a go at him. He was against Taniela Tupou, who was like the big miss for Australia in the World Cup. Because despite Australia's reputation, he is a ferocious scrummaging tight head. And is right up there and doesn't often get the plaudits because of all his showboating antics. The fact that he can do big runs and twinkle toe side steps and wonderful reverse passes. But Taniela Tupou, first and foremost, is a big old bastard and is very good at pushing other bastards over.
Yep, he's a very good scrummager as well, isn't he? So just to recap then, what does that result mean for Wales? So it now means that Wales have lost 8 consecutive games in a row, and it's now 14 defeats in 20 games for Gatland since his return to Wales. It also means the Wales drop to their lowest position in the World Rugby ranking, slipping to 11th, and we now fall outside the top 10 for the first time ever. And it was Australia's first win in Sydney for 10 years as well, which is quite funny because I remember listening to a couple of Australian rugby podcasts, and they were saying, why are we playing this in Sydney? We never win in Sydney. Like, we should be playing in Brisbane. We got a better record there, but it didn't matter because they still ended up beating Wales. James, we were just talking about the game and Mason Grady in particular. Now, look, it's only the second game that he's been playing at 12, and he's playing with Owen Watkin. I'm going to be honest now. For me, it's not quite working. And I know it's only 2 games, so maybe we shouldn't be writing off just yet. But what did you make of the centre partnership between Grady and Watkin?
I think that I still don't think Grady is a 12.
No, I agree.
I think it's exposing his already iffy defensive positioning. But he's also being forced to play in a system that doesn't give him ample ball to operate effectively, as the same as with Owen Watkin. with Watkin has had a fantastic season, right? And deserves to be in the Wales squad. Unfortunately, I think he's in a system that doesn't suit his attributes. He's not being used well, and I think he gets scapegoated for a lot of things that go wrong. And if you think he played bad, look at fucking state of Nick Tompkins when he came on. He was awful.
Oh God, yes, he was. Yes.
It pains me to say it, but I do think the future of the Wales centre looks like Eddie James, Joe Roberts, Mason Grady.
I agree. Yeah.
In that axis, maybe. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have Keith in that conversation, but I'm just not an idiot, and it will never happen. How many chances? My issue isn't with Grady going forward, right? Teams are obviously going to mark Grady because he's massive. We can't stop that happening, right? I think if you can get the ball to him in 13 where he's not playing north-south, as Richie Reese put it, is you probably have more of a chance to get him into space and attack more. My issue is with how we operate in this defensive system, which I don't think is a terrible defensive system from Mike Forshaw. I actually think the system's fine for an international rugby defence. It's just the way Grady has defended, and I've had my issues with Grady's defensive positioning on the wing. That's my thing with him at the minute. That's my thing. I think he's in a system that just isn't playing to his best attributes, both on offense and on defense. Same with Watkin. The alternatives though aren't great because you play Eddie James and Nick Tompkins. You likely are going to get the same outcome. The thing with James is he's a bit more of a distributor. That's it, really. You trade off a bit of Grady's power for a bit more distribution, but that's not the game plan Gatland wants to play, and Alex King wants to play. So, yeah, I think Ben Thomas was fine. I think Bevan was okay. I thought he was better in the South Africa game, personally. There's not much more to say. From my point of view, Gareth Thomas had his worst game for the for Wales.
He did. He had a stinker, didn't he? Tupou really gave him a tough time in the scrum.
I've been reading online that apparently he was not fully fit, and he's so he didn't have a good game, and I'm able to put that out there. And what a lot of people are wrongly saying is that he doesn't offer anything, and using this game as a way of saying that he's not Wales' starter. He's comfortably Wales' best loose head. If you're excluding Nicky Smith, who's not in the squad,
yeah,
he is comfortably Wales' best loose head. Sorry, Dewi Lake, the line that Harley mentioned, right? I've said on here before, and I think we've said as a pod, is Dav Jenkins' line-up calling is not very good. It's just not, and that was proved on the weekend. Dewi Lake is a 92% line-out thrower this year. So this narrative that he's not very good at throwing this year is a rubbish one. It just is.
I can only recall one throw that wasn't straight, but every time,
straight.
But other than that, it just got picked off, didn't it?
Yeah.
But
it's because our setup is predictable and the calls are being made are predictable. Go on, Harley. You're itching to say.
I was going to say, with the Dewi Lake not straight, Gatland came out and said, I'd like clarification of that because I can't see how it wasn't straight.
I don't remember it, so I can't say.
But, that's one of the things I was saying, that, if the one throw that it wasn't on target, actually someone was saying, well, actually, no, if the head coach is defending Dewi for, then you've got to look at it. But then is part of that David Jenkins, because let's be fair, David Jenkins probably has had as much time line-out calling for Wales as he has with Exeter, because he was only breaking through the Exeter team. Yes, he was captain, but I don't think he was their main line-out caller. Or it's only he's only just about taking on, and he hasn't got anywhere near the experience Beard has, which would be perfect if we had Beard here to go through, or you had a forwards coach who was given him line-out call or given them a line-out system to go through. So I don't know if it's necessarily Jenkins's calls or if it's that the system that they've been given. And again, that goes back to, we're very quick to have a go at some of the players on the pitch, but David Jenkins had issues when he's been calling line-outs. Basically, any other second row combo other than Adam Beard has had issues with the line-out in Wales. Is it maybe that Adam Beard's just that good a line-out operator? He just ignores his forward coach and it works.
By every facet of the game, Adam Beard is the world's biggest line-out nose. Right? He lives and breathes it, right? and he makes a line-out better. And people often say, well, why doesn't he take that many line-outs? Taking many line-outs doesn't make you a good line-out forward. Because you receive so many. Justin, as I keep saying, Justin Tipuric was Wales' most used line-out forward.
Yeah.
That doesn't make him
a good line-out caller. That's two different things, yeah.
And he is one who lives and breathes line-outs. Like, he loves it because he understands how much of a weapon it can be. And this is not a problem just isolated to Dewi Lakers. Well, Evan Lloyd had some picked off. I think we hone in on the Dewi Lake thing because he did have a gyroscopic arm at one point, and trust me, I witnessed it many times. But yeah, the set piece needs sorting out. Positive wise, I thought Ben Thomas was fine. It didn't do himself any injustice. Didn't do it. He's a Welsh 10 in this current system, which means he's not going to do much except pass the ball. He goal kicked relatively well, as far as I can remember.
3.
Yeah,
that's all he has to do.
But, in a struggling scrum, Archie Griffin was fine, and around the park was good.
Top tackler.
And I've said my issue was not with Archie Griffin as a player. I think Archie Griffin's a fantastic player, and I tipped him for Wales ages ago. It's just the amount of minutes he's playing, which is none. He's played 365 minutes over a season. Yeah, that is not good. That's not good enough for a tight test level.
That's the problem, isn't it? The set piece is a huge concern for Wales, though. Yeah. So the line-out success rate on Saturday was 76%, which really isn't good enough. And the scrum was, Archie Griffin did have a really tough time in the scrum against James Slipper, which you would expect, given James Slipper's the most experienced prop in world rugby now. Credit to Archie Griffin, though. He did recover pretty well. And I think a good shout-out as well goes to Kempsey Mathias.
Yeah, he came out against the Aussie replacement tight end, didn't he? He was
exactly.
Fine.
So the caveat is, yes, Tupou and Slipper went off. The scrum did get better because, they weren't cut up against those guys. But I thought he did very well in the loose. His scrummaging was okay. Archie Griffin played 74 minutes.
Yeah.
He was top tackler, 26. So the scrum did improve, but it is a constant Achilles heel for us, isn't it? The fact that we can't set a platform for our backs and our set piece is really letting us down. A word for Chris Chunza.
I think best game for Wales.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say this was undoubtedly his best game in a Wales shirt. So that makes me think, well, is his future now at lock instead of the back row? Because I thought he was very effective and he pulled off a brilliant turnover. I think Australia were in our 22, they're going through 17 phases. Yeah. It looked like they were going to barge their way over and he come up with an absolute pearl of a turnover. It really was impressive. And I've been critical of Chunza because I think sometimes he doesn't impose himself as much as he should for a guy of his size. I want him to show a bit more grunt, but I thought on this occasion, I thought he was very, very good and it was his best performance in the Wales shirt. Gav Thomas had a wretched time, didn't he? Yellow card in the scrum. It was difficult for him. But I tell you what I was disappointed in was the breakdown battle. I mean, we lost that all hands down, didn't we? So we conceded 28 turnovers. We only won 3 turnovers, according to the stats.
Tommy Raffel, this has been my issue with Tommy Raffel, right? And this happened... He was brilliant in the Six Nations. I think it was the last autumn when we played. Was it when we played New Zealand last autumn? He had a stinker and he goes missing in a lot of games.
Is that fair to say? Because he is very consistent in a lot of games. I don't know if that's a fair comment.
But he doesn't. He's brilliant at one thing, right? Tommy Raffel he's brilliant at the breakdown, right?
Yeah.
But if a team can nullify that, and a team who's so protective over the ball, like a Joe Schmidt team, right? Then he, what else does he offer? He doesn't carry. He's not a carrier. He's not a link player. He's not a line-out forward. So do you know what I mean? Like, this is where the Jack Morgan debate tips over Jack Morgan for me. It's gutted that he's injured, is because Jack Morgan has more of an all-court game. And arguably, so this is where Jim Botham comes in. Does he have a bit more? He's a bit beefier, better in the carry. This is not me saying Rafael is a bad player. Rafael is a very, very talented open side and one of the last great Jacqueline open sides in this modern game, where the 7 has evolved to a point now where we don't need it. But if a team like Joe Schmidt, Australia, who covered the ball, like it's fucking, it's caught his wife, basically, it's that, protective, then Wales need to find a better way of being in that breakdown, because they were awful at it on Saturday. And this is where you also need to define your roles for your second rows, because you need a second row who's going to hit rucks and is going to be strong over the ball when someone carries in. It's what Thomas. It's same with your Titan, actually. If you're going to have, you're going to put Archie Griffin in that Thomas Francis role, where his job is to stand over a ruck and not be moved, the Tom Boter role, essentially. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what changes he makes for that second test. For me, I just think Tommy Rafael needs to show a bit more of an all-court game. I'm not the only person who said this, I'm not the only person. I think he needs to show more of an all-court game for me.
Yeah, okay.
It's something like, to be fair, it's just to hop on, because it's a comment I've made about Rafael before now when we've had this debate, and saying he looks really good when he was in a back row of Liebenberg and Visa, who did an awful lot of hard yard carrying. They were the guys who were getting people down on the ground so he could get in over the ball. Do Wales have, yes, Team Pumphrey's been tackling quite well. He's tackling everything. But is he making the sort of shots that's allowing the likes of Rafa and Lake is another one who gets, is probably an underrated jackler as well. If you're not getting the players on the ground quick enough so that you can get in before the support, you haven't got a shot. I mean, whenever I've played last season, it was basically a case of, we're not bothering with the jackal this today. We're not going to get these guys down quickly enough. Don't bother, just soak up. They're going to, eventually they'll run out forwards and put it to the backs and they'll drop the ball.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Our discipline in the first half was absolutely atrocious. I don't know what was going on, but I think it was 17 minutes. We were already being warned about our discipline. But it's funny when you look at the stats, Australia actually gave away more penalties than Wales. So they gave away 13, we gave away 11. So that was another area that let us down in the first half. I have to say, though, the attack, I mean, it's so bad, isn't it? It's blunt. And apart from that penalty try, which, by the way, our driving ball was very, very good. Australia was really struggling to contain that. That's one area that did go right for Wales. Yet again, in attack and open play, we just never look like scoring a try. We're not making hardly any line breaks. We're hardly beating any defenders. It is so bad. Why is our attack so bad? And why isn't Alex King getting more criticism than what he should be getting? I mean, should we now be pointing fingers at Alex King and saying, well, come on now, you're in charge of our attack. For all the criticism Gatland's getting, maybe, as Harley mentioned earlier, we look at Humphreys and we need to look at King and say, what is going on?
Well, the interesting thing for me is I come back to the Gwyn Jones comments this week, which are very interesting about, you talk about selection. I don't want to talk about that bit. I want to talk about the way the players in which they've picked and the style in which they're trying to make them play. Is they have picked players from teams who play more open, risky, expansive rugby and are trying to make them play. I think attritional is the wrong word, but a more percentage, numbers-based style of play, where you hold on to the ball, you're focused on ball retention, making hard yards, forcing the opposition to give away penalties or punching holes essentially. Like the Ospreys play. You're sending a big man up, and then you're sending forwards around the corner to create mismatches eventually. But we're using the personnel from teams who like to play close to the line, out the back, wide rugby. So, this is where, we've been talking about the supposed marrying up of the regional and the international game, and you can see now why it just isn't working. Because actually, what do? Are you saying then, if you're Warren Gatland and Alex King, and you're saying to Jockey and to Dwayne Peel, we have, every intention of playing your players, right? We're the ones who, we're picking your players the most, right? For example. But we plan on playing this type of rugby. Well, are you going to say that you need to change your style of rugby? Well, obviously they're not going to do that, because they're going to play the type of rugby that they feel is best for their clubs. It's the same if you turned around and said, right, we're going to pick 13 Ospreys right now from this current squad and then try and make them play like Cardiff. It just wouldn't work. So absolutely, Alex King and Gatland should be getting more and more criticism, but equally, they are, and the players should be getting criticism because they're failing to execute seemingly simple things, but they are asked to be playing a system in which they are not used to playing.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
I mean, like Cardiff, like people are, people are talking about like how Ben Thomas he's almost been the main playmaker at Cardiff when Tina sort of just sits in and sets up. But De Beer is the one who sort of says this is the shape, and then De Beer sort of makes a shape, and then Ben Thomas makes the play, and that's only his thing. But the point is that it works with two playmakers. You notice it in Judgment Day when De Beer went off and Ben Thomas switched from 12 to 10. Cardiff's attack got less effective because Sherratt's attack is designed to have two playmakers, so one steps in, so that you're not always sure who's going to pull the trigger. But Gatland's not doing that. He's seeing Ben Thomas thinking, oh, he's big and physical, he can kick the ball and he can call shapes. I'm going to move him to 10, missing the point of why he works so well doing that at 12. And it's just getting really frustrating. So, I don't know, maybe bringing in Eddie James, who can sort of do that because he's grown up playing 10. Because obviously not playing 10 since you were 6 years old is a perfectly fine requisite in the Wales squad to be a 10 cover. But even then, it took De Beer and Ben Thomas playing week in, week out a whole season to start getting this sort of almost seamless switch between the two.
But this is the problem, though, isn't it? Like, Ben Thomas doesn't play 10 for Cardiff. Mason Grady doesn't play 12 for Cardiff. So it's pretty difficult, isn't it, to see how this is going to work when they're not playing in natural positions for club.
And bear in mind, Jockey said, I'm not changing my system for it because this is the system. This is the system that's exciting the fans. This is what's getting them into the thing. You want us to pay for our own. Also, we had Dickie Holland on the Central podcast this week. Listened to that this morning because I wasn't on. Very good. And he was there saying, about how WRU are telling us we've got to increase our own revenues by say X amount over the next 5 years. We said, well, part of the reason we're holding good season ticket thing is even though we're narrowly losing every game, is at least it's a good brand of rugby to watch. That's what the fans want to see. So they're not going to change how that is just because of the WRU.
I am consistent in saying that mindset is. But I agree with what you're saying in terms of Jockey should not change the way he plays. Is that there is no yes, there is such a thing as an exciting brand of rugby. It could be as exciting as it wants. If you're not winning games, it doesn't matter. Like that, I don't think your style of play is what's getting people in the door. I think it's because you have a likeable group of players with a likeable coach. You made up of a core of people from the city centre of Cardiff and from the bits of Cardiff like Ely, which require more outreach than someone in Llandaff North. I think that's what's getting people through the door, not because Teddy Williams does a cat flap or I don't know, Garen Smith does a chip kick. I don't know who plays for Cardiff anymore.
When you should mention that, then we'll come into him when we get to the end.
It was Josh Hathaway's debut on Saturday. There was two big errors he made. His kicking out of van was quite poor, actually. He kicked the ball dead on one occasion, and then a poor clearance kick, which led to Tom Wright's try. Which, great finish, by the way. I know that's doing the rounds on social media. It was a fantastic finish, but let's be honest. The defender was Keystone Cops, wasn't it? Tompkins flapping like a chicken like that. Grady well out of position. But what did you guys think of his debut, Josh Hathaway? Do you think he'll get another chance, or what did you make of it?
But
yeah,
it was, for me, a poor debut. When Josh Hathaway is a fine player, right, and should be championed as a future Wales player. But let's be fair, everything we've seen of him is because he's playing in a system that suits his style. He's also not been very good defensively. I thought he's fine, made his one-on-one shots relatively well, good chase off kickoffs. I think there's a player in there, but I think the way the media have hyped him up because he's a young player who plays in England, as is their way, is that he's a future god of rugby because he happens to play in the same club that Louis Rees-Zammit did in the same position, and he's Welsh and from. I don't think it was a good debut overall. And I'm not alone in saying this.
It was a 5 out of 10 performance for me. 5 out of 10 performance. You think it's too soon, Harley, do you?
I think it was a bit too soon. I think because when you look at, yes, he's played a fair few minutes of Gloucester actually, but this is a Gloucester team that basically halfway through the Premiership season gave up playing in the Premiership. So they were just cycling out the kids. And, he was on the pitch for some pretty crap losses. Frankly, was he in the team for the? You got to look. What are the games Gloucester considered big? Did he play in those? Other than the Premiership Cup final, I don't think he did play in a lot of those. I said I think he's too raw. You can tell he's got a lot of work on. A lot of this is just clips and people have ever sent to me, but again, didn't really, when there were breaks, it was, say, oh, that was a poor read from Hathaway or whatever. That could just be, again, bias from the radio commentators I listen to, not wanting to blame someone inside them. But yeah, it just, from what I'd seen of Hathaway this season, I saw the play that was there, but I didn't see the current international. That's what other people are calling him for.
We know why he's been kept.
He's been capped basically to avoid the repeat of Emmanuel Fee-Werboso.
Yes, That's exactly it. Yeah.
No matter how many times I point out to people, it's completely different circumstance. But yeah, whatever.
It's a shameless ploy. We all know why.
I think Reagan Grace will get capped this weekend for the exact same reason.
Well, that's why I was wondering, would he come into the test team or do you keep him in for the Reds game?
There was a lot made that Reagan Grace would be called up for England. I don't think he'd ever play for England, if I'm honest. No. I'd be very on. He's a very proud Welshman. But yeah, he'll be capped. Gatlin wouldn't have called him in and called him up on the squad not to cap it.
Did it with Ratty first time round.
Well, oh well.
Oh well.
Yeah, but no, I could see now. Hathaway might. Well, so now I reckon if Sanjay isn't 100% fit, you might see win it back, and I reckon Reagan Grace will come in for Hathaway. Or be on the bench just because they'll want to cap him, and the Reds game will be uncapped as it's not a test match.
Yeah. So I watched the New Zealand-England game before Australia-Wales. And I have to say, the stark difference between the teams, those games, it was quite remarkable. I watched that game on Saturday and I just think Australia and Wales are two average teams going through a rebuild, and it's really disappointing that Wales, again, it's this familiar failings, isn't it? The set piece, the attack, the discipline. Because for me, Australia were there to be beaten. I think this was a really good opportunity for Wales. Because don't forget, Joe Schmidt, in the build-up to this game, he came out to the media and said, "I've never been so unprepared for this game." They only had 5 full training sessions. So don't forget, Wales have had a lot more time together in camp. They've had more prep. They come off the back of a tough test against South Africa and Twickenham. But then when you watch the 2 games, yeah, Australia were in great shakes themselves, but even then they look better than us. They look like they had more structure. That's the worrying thing for me. And I just think when you look at Australia, they're going to get better under Joe Schmidt given time. They are going to progress. They will have an identity. They will have a style. They'll be very hard to beat. Do I think the same about Wales under Warren Gatland Mark II over time? I don't. I'm just not confident he can turn this around. And I'm not anti-Gatland yet. I'm not saying Gatland gets sacked. There is a growing discontent for Warren Gatland from a lot of our supporters. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm really unsure that he's going to be able to turn this around. I think he's bitten off more he can chew by coming back.
As I said, Gatland isn't a coach.
He's a delegator.
He's more of a man manager, so it's basically his assistants, and he'll have his idea of how he wants to play, and it's then it's the coach underneath. So if there's a coaching issue, the overall story is ultimately Gatland's the thing. But one thing I want to raise you, because you mentioned some of the other games on the weekend, and thinking of what was just fucking god awful, I basically had to turn off after about 50 minutes. The Scotland-Canada game. Not because of Scotland, basically, but I was watching a training run. Frankly, just not worth the effort. It's like watching peak 2019 Leinster against someone else who put their second team out because they just went, "Oh, what's the fucking point?" Do you think we'd been better off? I know Gatland says, "Oh, it's important for us to play the big teams," but do you think, considering how young and inexperienced the squad is going for, we'd have been better off doing this America's tour?
No,
maybe. Well,
or do you think we'd be losing, and then that would be worse in the long run?
Well, can you imagine if this Wales team had to go to New Zealand? Can you imagine if they had to go to South Africa? Yeah, we're lucky that we're going to Australia in many ways, because if we had to go to South Africa or New Zealand, it would get very, very ugly. I think it's an interesting point you raised, though.
It's Harley, that's a wider issue when, as soon as you said, "Oh, well, it was Australia," or it would have had to have been South Africa, New Zealand. That in itself is a huge issue with Rugby Canada. But my point was, if we played Canada, USA, Chile, Uruguay, or do you think the issue is Scotland? The issue is we probably wouldn't have. Well, but I feel like that's the way to, if you want to develop and at least build some confidence. Play some shittier teams and then work your way up.
But it doesn't work for Scotland, though.
Because Scotland are happy as long as there's a trophy on the line.
Yeah, but Scotland have done this for years. All they do is tour shit, like I say, shit rugby nations, as in not top 10 tier 1 rugby nations, pump them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're class. We're going to win the Six Nations." Bottle that. And then do the same in the World Cup. They've done it for years and years and years.
I'm not saying doing it every tour, though. I'm just saying for this one tour, when frankly, really what we need is just to have a group of lads playing together and it not needing...
What we need to do...
Right.
I can see your point.
And what Borthwick has done, and I am not Borthwick's biggest fan. I think he's dull and uninspiring. I think he's got good coaching set around him. Is Borthwick has blended a mix of quality experienced players and then called up young, hungry, in-form players. Chandler Cunningham, right? I'm not talking about genetic freaks now. That's different, right? England have a wealth of genetic freaks they can go to. Cunningham South, playing very well for Harlequins, deserves his call-up, will be England's 6 going forward. Finn Baxter, a fucking outstanding prop. Really like Finn Baxter. Young. Manny Yogan's been called up in place of Joe Marler. Really big fan of Manny Yogan. Good, I think, good ceiling on him.
Good reason for Saints winning.
Yeah, look at the 2 10s. Marcus Smith, Finn Smith. Right, 2 young, hungry 10s playing well, been rewarded. Especially Finn Smith. Rugby Jesus is a bit different. He was a bit of a prodigy and was hyped up from a young age. But Finn Smith was not. If Worcester hadn't gone under, probably would have been a system player at Worcester. So look at the Ethan Roots last year, the last camp. I know he's in this camp and not playing the Six Nations Cup. Was a young player playing really well and was rewarded with a call-up. Gatland is not doing that effectively. And yes, this is me ranting about a lack of Ospreys, but he's not calling up young players.
Waiting for it.
But the way they do it in England, right, is more about and I watch it and I have these discussions, with is both, and this is a discussion I've had with Robbie as well. Gatland and Eddie Jones are very similar coaches in that they reward loyalty and with older players, right? He did it in England. He's changed that at Japan because he has to, because he's in a very different situation than he was at England. Look at how long it took him to cap a new scrum half, for crying out loud.
Well, to be fair, Gatland's only been there for 2 of those 4 years. Gatland did cap the last news. He's capped both the last.
But Gatland's squads generally stay the same. He's never done a proper reset, a hard reset before. When was the last time he did a hard reset? 2008.
He's only done it because he's had to.
Yeah, but he's not very good at them, clearly, because he fucked it up.
I think we should have played Canada, actually. I agree with Harley. I mean, because not even Wales could lose to Kingsley Jones's Canada. We know we're struggling. I don't think we're that bad to lose to Kingsley Jones's Canada.
I think we just about. But it's the one sort of thing, like the issue is, like, if you want to try and work on a new attacking system, the worst team to come up against first with the box, because you're not going to be able to do anything, because you're going to be forced to kick the ball away. You're always going to be going backwards because that's how they play. You want, some discussion me, Hugh, Julia, and Sharon were having on the women's pod was actually the thing Wales women needed to do was develop their attack. Their forward game is still up there. It's definitely up with the top teams. What struggles are attack, but we couldn't work on developing our attack because we weren't able to take risks or take chances or try new things because we were defending for our lives. Because the Red Road, you'd have like Black Ferns and the Wallaroos just absolutely coming at you, and you just basically all you do is defend, and you just killed your confidence. I get why some coaches say, "Oh, we want to be playing the best teams," but other times maybe it's better to play less good teams. I know you've got the issue with Scotland, but I feel like Gatland's probably better than Tooney in that sense. That once he's got a team who are confident, he's better at bigging them up. Whereas I also feel like he's just as good at a team who's low on confidence, pushing them further and further down.
Wales have always been effective, right? It's because we've played these teams consistently. We played South Africa consistently for years, and then we had their number, right? And then they got the best rugby coach in the world, or 2 best rugby coaches in the world, and then that pushed them on to become world champions. My issue with Scotland is they have a fantastic set of players, and they had their golden generation, albeit not as much as Wales, but have failed to deliver on every account.
Okay, yeah.
What have Scotland delivered on in terms of what is their success rate?
I hope you haven't got any Scottish listeners after this, because they're not going to be happy with the conversation.
They've won trophies that they've made up.
They've won trophies that they've made up. Okay, that's going to endear us to our Scottish listeners. Right, enough about Scotland now. We're talking too much about Scotland. Let's look ahead to Saturday. And Wales are going to be in Melbourne, second test.
The big one's tomorrow. Wales under 20s versus France.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. The must-win game.
Good win for both the under-20s and the women against Spain in their respective matches.
Absolutely.
Utterly, peeking through from behind the sofa as the Wales women game was. Until it sort of became a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, best of luck. Is it 1 o'clock? What time is kickoff?
Tomorrow, I think, is midday-ish.
Oh, right, okay.
I'll be in work, I know that.
Yeah, best of luck to the Wales under-20s. So anyway, on Saturday, Wales are in Melbourne. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are injury concerns. So at time of recording, we don't know if these guys are going to be fit, but we know that Liam Williams, Gav Thomas and Aaron Wainwright are in doubt. That's going to be a huge loss, isn't it, if all 3 of those players, particularly Wainwright and Liam Williams, isn't available. If they are fit, though, Harley, would you be tempted to make any changes for this test? Or do you think Gatland would just stick with what he's got?
I think to a certain extent you almost have to, just because, as I said, if we're complaining that we're not building anything in attack, but if the team's constantly changing, you're not gonna. So you're almost forced into keeping things the same. I'll be honest, I feel bad for Cam Winnick because I don't think he's done anything wrong. Sanjay's just coming on and doing what Sanjay does. But if that's what you want to do, go for it. I think Gareth Thomas is still the best loose head, and he's probably the second best loose head at 50. Gareth Thomas at 70% is still probably the second best loose head in the squad.
Mm.
The question is do you want to reward? Do you want to make sure that Domachowski has a look in on this tour, or is Gatland pretty happy with what he can do and he wants to see more out of Matthias? Honestly, I don't know. I just think you could make changes, but I don't see who would necessarily make it better that is in the squad.
Yeah, that's
any players outside the squad, or I think would improve that team no end.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Nicky Smith, for example, but he's not
Nicky
included.
Smith, Thomas Francis.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah. What about you then, James? Can you see any changes being made? If everyone's fit, that is.
Yes, but Gatland won't because he doesn't like making wholesale changes to a team. He never has.
Politically or the team.
Unless it's medically enforced. I think there is scope for Grady to move to the wing.
I think we'll see Reagan Grace as opposed to Grady onto the wing.
I think Grace will get capped this weekend. He has to. I do think he has to. They wouldn't have taken him otherwise. Maybe we'll see Eddie James. I think. Can you really justify Tompkins after that performance?
I don't know what the point of Tompkins is anymore. I don't, because I think he's no good on the bench. He just doesn't give you any impact at all. If you're going to play Tompkins, you got to start him.
Yeah,
but then,
I agree with that.
I just don't see the point of him being in this Wales squad. If you're going through a total rebuild, let's start with Eddie James or put Ben Thomas at 12. Sorry, Ali was going to say.
I think with the starting Tompkins at 12, why would you start Tompkins ahead of the big lads Grady and Eddie James? It'd be the distribution game. So if you want a good distributor at 12, why not pick the 12 who's a good distributor in Ben Thomas? And then you bring in whether you bring in Jacob Beetham, who is again the similar mold. Then you have your Costello, Ben Thomas, Watkin. Fine, right? You're a bit smaller then, or you have Grady as your certified big lad in the back line. But for me, that's the thing. I think that was a bit of everyone's worries. Like Tompkins can't do the crash ball as well as any of the other centres, and he's not the best distributor. He doesn't really call shapes, and he doesn't really kick. So I don't see where his place.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know where. What's the point of him?
I think he's a bit of a loose cat. If people talk about Grady jumping out of the line at 12, it's probably because he's been watching Nick Tompkins play 12. To be honest,
he's always been a loose chicken, and he had like a loose chicken. Tompkins. He's always been chaotic.
Fine, as long as the rest of the team, I always said it worked well for the likes of Faz and Bigger because they're experienced 10s. They know what's going on with him. They know how to deploy that. If you're an inexperienced 10 like Costello, or not, a 12 playing 10 like Ben Thomas, that's just another bit of shit you don't want to be dealing with right now. Like I can't even. Here you go forward, carry it up. I know we're going to lose yards, but I just no, not today.
Yeah,
my wife when she sees the baby's gone into the cereal cupboard again. It just whatever.
I just think that I can see Watkin being dropped to put maybe an Eddie James, Mason Grady centre combo in there. If Gareth Thomas isn't fit, then the only Osprey will be Dewi Lake, which will just give me a lot of ammunition to have fun on Twitter. But no, look, injuries be injuries, and the main thing is I want Gareth Thomas to be okay for the coming season. because that is all that matters, quite frankly. Look, it doesn't matter what the squad is, right? What matters right now is, are Wales going to come out in a cohesive way, and are they going to sort the discipline out? Are they going to attack? I didn't even care if the attack doesn't work. I just wanted to score some points. I don't care how the points are accrued, right? Just score some.
I mean, Robbie did point out there has been improvement in the point scoring thing. If this is the first game where Wales has scored points in both halves of a game of rugby all year.
But isn't penalty try? Sorry, isn't penalty try Wales' most top scorer? I mean, I read that stat on Twitter, and I don't know if someone's taking the piss or not, but it could well be true.
That's the Ospreys.
Yeah, he's a proud Osprey.
Oh, there were two Ospreys.
I mean, I would just like to point out he's only scored three. He only scored 3 for the Ospreys this season. I would just like to point that out. I don't know where this narrative has come from. But yeah, it doesn't matter. The system is what needs to change, not the personnel. The personnel are fine. The personnel are perfectly competent rugby players who most of them have proven on the international stage at some point that they can perform. That is not the issue. The issue is the system in which they're playing it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Right, so before we wrap up, gents, let's make our prediction for Saturday, because Wales really need to win, don't they? They're on this losing streak. It's hard to see us breaking it. Winning is a habit, so is losing, as we know. The pressure is building on Warren Gatland. I don't know if you saw the interview we did with Lauren Jenkins after the game. He was very touchy with Lauren Jenkins. So the pressure is building on Gatland. He knows that. What's our predictions for Saturday? Harley, how do you see it going?
I can see it just being worse.
You think it'd be worse than the first test?
Yeah, I can see it just being like, I reckon Joe Schmidt will have that little bit more time with the players. He'll have seen the few bits Wales have done well. He'll have come up with ways around that. I'm not convinced that the Wales squad will have come around it, because Gatland will be thinking, oh no, we'll be fine as long as we're fitter. I reckon Australia by about 15 to 20 points.
Good gosh. Okay. James, what about you? Can Wales win a test? Can they break this losing streak? How do you see it going on Saturday?
No, they can't.
No.
Just simply they can't. I think it'll be another turgid affair. The only saving grace is, you can argue, we not know what to expect, but we have a clearer idea about what this Joe Schmidt Australia team want to do now.
Yeah.
And maybe you can work on doing that more, because they had very limited game film to go on. But like I said, if the system doesn't either change or work effectively, then, I think it's going to be a very similar scoreline again.
Yeah.
I think Australia by 9 again.
Australia by 9. See, I think if Wales were going to win a test on this tour, I think it needed to be the first test. I think that was the moment to catch them cold. Like I said, they hardly had any prep time. Schmidt said he only had a couple of weeks together. That was our moment on Saturday to end the hoodoo, to get a morale boosting win, and we blew it through our poor attack, poor discipline, lack of set piece, and it's really hard to see how Wales are going to turn this around, isn't it? Because Australia got their tails up now. That's giving them so much confidence, isn't it? And Schmidt will drive that into them, that confidence and that belief and structure. I don't want us to be doom and gloom on this pod, but it is hard to see Wales turning this around. I think it's going to take a markedly improved performance. Like I said, set piece, discipline, attack, all has to significantly improve if we are going to come away with anything. I can see us losing by about 9-10 points, unfortunately. But a shame to end it on a sour note there, but we've got to be honest, haven't we? So that's where we are. Is there anything else, gents, you want to say before we wrap up?
So Cardiff Central will be recording this week. We have special guest interview with the hero of Bilbao, Garen Smith, earlier mentioned, to discuss his new role as a coach for Pontypridd RFC.
Excellent. James, are you doing the Ospreys pod this week?
Yeah, I think the idea is we're going to do one on Wednesday.
St. Helens special?
Yeah, well,
Big
yes,
stadium.
actually it is. We have looked at various ideas for good player, St. Helens themed. That's if I start pre-season tomorrow, so I could well be dead. So if I am,
Solidarity.
yeah.
Good stuff. Okay.
Guessing you're not doing Dragon's Lair for a couple of weeks.
Oh no, we're done. We are done until I say really.
Till the
Yeah, we're
pre-season
done.
games.
Yeah, we'll probably be back for the pre. We have got a couple of interviews lined up. I can reveal that Kerry Jones is going to join us on the pod. He got in touch with me actually, and yeah, we discussed it, and he said he'd love to come on the pod. Reece Blumberg is going to come on at some point as well, but I can't see us coming back until August, I think. Yeah, because it's just nothing to talk about now from a Dragons point of view, really. So, yeah, okay. I think we'll leave it there for this week, gents. Thank you both for joining me, and thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to review the second test in Melbourne and hopefully a Wales win. Fingers and toes crossed. But until then, take care and goodbye.
Let's start.
Goodbye.